Hawkeye portal entry players have found new homes now that Quavon Matthews has announced his transfer to Florida Atlantic. Now, how is Iowa doing in its search for a transfer portal ad? Certainly Iowa has been in the portal. We'll get to that in a moment. But first, before we get to our video for today, a reminder to please hit the subscribe button if you have not already subscribed to our channel. Help us build the channel, build the brand, and that is much appreciated. And of course, like this video as well. So the big news this week, Quavon Matthews, who has been in the portal for some months now, has found a new home at Florida Atlantic. If you don't know much about the Owls program, Mike Stoops actually just left Florida Atlantic to join his brother Mark Stoops down at Kentucky as a linebackers coach. But Mike was the defensive coordinator at the time. Florida Atlantic has actually coached, the head coach is Willie Taggart, former Florida State coach and, of course, Oregon coach. So Willie, the head coach down there, so Quavon will head back to his old stomping grounds down in Florida to finish out his career. Best wishes to him. We're going to take a look at the entire list of entries. Iowa has had, for the record, 5 players, which is a very low number when you look at it in comparison to the rest of the Big Ten. And I would venture to say the rest of the country. We're going to compare Iowa to the rest of the Big Ten, but I want to make a couple notes about Iowa's search for portal ads before we get to our list. Hunter Norzad did commit to Penn State. That was the big one, and that's the big one that I kept kind of hyping during our segments with Mark Rogers. I felt like that was probably Iowa's biggest target. It was clear that they were not looking for a quarterback ad, and so certainly that offensive line, specifically tackle, had to be at the top of the list. And so a swing and a miss on Hunter Norzad from Cornell, who ends up heading to Penn State, a rival of Iowa. So let's look at the list now. We'll look at Iowa's entries here on the left. So these are players that were on the Iowa roster last fall, entered the portal, and you see where they have ended up. And then, of course, on the right, you see targets that Iowa has identified in the portal, specifically targets who have been offered, because, of course, there's recruiting that's going on behind the scenes, but these are guys that we can confirm have received offers. They have reported offers. So, first of all, of course, Hunter Norzad, we brought him up already. That was the big one. His top 5 was Iowa, Penn State, Virginia Tech, Illinois, and Auburn. He visits Iowa, ends up going to Penn State. Of course, he visited all 5 of those schools, ends up going to Pennsylvania. Nate Pete. You see Nathaniel Pete on this list. Again, I'm looking at the right side of the column here. Nathaniel Pete from Stanford, one of really 2 featured backs for the Cardinal this past year. He ends up going back towards his old stomping grounds, Columbia, Missouri, to play for the Tigers. And so the only 2 guys left on this list that you see, again, these are guys that have reported offers. So these are guys that we're aware of. Perhaps there's someone else that Iowa is recruiting in the portal right now, but the only guys that have reported offers in the portal from Iowa, tight end Steven Stilianos from Lafayette University and defensive end Cam Butler from Miami, Ohio. Now, I did tweet out about this yesterday. If I'm Iowa, I'm probably making Butler more of a priority. Now, I'm not saying that Steven Stilianos would not be a good tight end here, and certainly if he has an opportunity to go to what I consider tight end U, and that is the Iowa program, that would certainly be a consideration. I know Steven Stilianos did visit Iowa here a little over a week ago. But if I'm Iowa, I'm looking at my tight end group right now, and you've got Laporta coming back, you've got Lachey coming back. Stilianos does have 2 years of eligibility remaining, so he's a grad transfer with 2 years remaining of eligibility. Certainly, I don't see him factoring into the rotation this year, barring some unforeseen injury or transfer. I don't see Laporta going anywhere. I don't know why Lachey would go anywhere. So does Stilianos want to come to Iowa for 1 year? Now, certainly he could, and certainly a pairing Stilianos and Lachey could be quite lethal in 23. But again, Stilianos has got 2 years remaining. I know he's got offers from the likes of Rutgers, Syracuse, and some other schools. So you just wonder, if he's got other Power 5 offers, will he end up coming to Iowa? And again, tight end is not nearly as big of a need as defensive end. Cam Butler from Miami, Ohio was first-team All-MAC. Certainly Iowa has missed that really dynamic edge rusher. No offense to Joe Evans, Zach Van Valkenburg, and even John Wagner when he's lined up on the outside. But they have not had the A.J. Epinesa, the Anthony Nelson, even Chauncey Golston, Drew Ott, that type of guy. They've not had that type of guy here at least over the last year or two. Of course, Chauncey Golston was here last year, or I should say 2 years ago now, 2 seasons ago, as was Davion Nixon on the inside. But they could use a guy like Cam Butler to come in and give them a dynamic pass rush. So again, they have offered Stilianos, they have offered Cam Butler. Let's go back to our list. Let's look at who Iowa has lost. Of course, Deuce Hogan on the left here, you see, heads to Kentucky as a preferred walk-on. Tyrone Tracy Jr. heads to Purdue. Quavon Matthews goes to Florida Atlantic. We mentioned him. Desmond Hutson goes to UNI. Josiah Miamen goes to Florida International. So I do find this interesting that Iowa has had only 5 entries into the portal during this past fall and, of course, into early 2022. Now, that could change. Certainly, I'm not expecting that number to stay at 5. And I'm going to produce a video here this week. So, again, that's another reason to subscribe. I'm going to produce a video later this week about Iowa and the portal as it relates to the rest of the Big Ten. How do they compare? And it's clear, you got to give Kirk Ferentz credit. They have been able to retain the majority of the roster. I mean, it's impressive what they've done. Of course, they've also gotten guys like Campbell and Laporta to return. And again, I'm talking relative to the rest of the Big Ten. Now, the one knock on Iowa is they are the only Big Ten school who has not gotten a commitment from a transfer portal player. Okay? So I want to compare the numbers both of entries into and, of course, targets and commitments, which Iowa's had 0, comparative to the rest of the Big Ten. So we'll produce that later this week, but I thought we could kind of update everybody on where Iowa stands in the portal. Iowa is one of only 7 FBS schools across the country to have had every single one of its portal entries find a new school already. That's unique. Obviously, when you only have 5 entries, it's more likely that all of them will find a home before a school that loses 13 players, for instance. But very interesting, Iowa, one of only 7 schools that can claim that. I don't know if it's a good or a bad thing. The bottom line is Iowa has not lost a lot roster-wise via the transfer portal, but they've also not gained anything via the transfer portal. So again, we'll be talking about this again tomorrow, but the guys to watch right now on the recruiting front, Steven Stilianos from Lafayette, tight end who visited Iowa recently, has an offer. Cam Butler, defensive end, Miami, Ohio. Iowa very likely will go after other players in the portal, possibly wait till after spring, but we'll see. Again, missing on Norris, missing on Pete. We'll see if they make some movement here soon via the transfer portal. Appreciate you tuning in for this video. Of course, again, we'll be back likely tomorrow talking more about the portal, comparing Iowa to the rest of the conference. How is Iowa doing relative to the rest of the Big Ten in the transfer portal?